How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yudches, Daf 18, Daf Choya. No, that'll be 28. Daf Chai, that life. That life. Daf life of Masechta Menachos. Gewaldig. Friends, gewaldige daf. I think, in my opinion, I think it's a pretty cool daf. We're actually going to stop somewhat high up on Yud Ches Amud Beis, but we also have a bunch of work to do on Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Friends, Rabbi Eliezer on makhsheves pigul sheloi kidarka givaldik. We learned the Mishnah yesterday where we talked about makhsheves pigul sheloi kidarka. Right? Of course, when it comes to pigul, there's achilas adam and achilas mizbeach. So if you add makhshavas for something, right, something that should be consumed by the mizbeach, but you had machshava of consuming for a person, for example, the komets, which should be burnt on the mizbeach, you have machshava to eat it, or vice versa. For example, the shiori mincha, where it should be eaten by achilas adam, by people, but you have intention to burn on the mizbeach. So we saw the machlokes between the Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer. The Chacham had said that it's completely kosher since these are ridiculous machshavas, right? To eat a kometz or to burn the shiari mincha makes no sense. Chacham say the korban is kosher, but Eliezer says it's possible. So yesterday we had talked about why does Eliezer say it's possible. The Chachamim, Rabbi Yochanan had brought a pasuk, and we're going to kind of continue on that discussion. That's really going to be essentially the real discussion for a lot of today's daf, about really to understand Rabbi Eliezer's opinion on makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka. Now, along the way, we have a discussion about intention to leave some blood alone until tomorrow. So if you slaughter, right? So the main kind of sugya, really what we're trying to understand is makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka. So you let's say take a kometz from a mincha with the intention to eat the kometz. Now, along the way, we also discussed the sugya of what if you slaughter a korban with the intention to just leave its blood alone, not to do zrikas adam, not to drink the blood, just to leave it. So we're going to discuss that sugya as well. That's also definitely going to be some of our focus today. And then we get to a new Mishnah and Daf Yud Ches towards the bottom, where we discuss certain steps of a mincha. Things like pouring the oil on it, mixing the mincha together, breaking it up into pieces if it's a baked or fried mincha. So, sheesh, that's a lot. Oh boy. Okay, fine. So, just to reiterate, what are we discussing today? Number one, understanding the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer when it comes to makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka. Number two, understanding the machlokes when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of just leaving its blood alone. That's section number 2. And section number 3 is discussing different parts of offering a korban mincha. Friends, yeah, as you could tell, I guess, from the introduction, there's some real sugyas here today, to the extent that it was like it required some effort to kind of extract, everything's kind of intertwined and intertangled, and there's some work to do on this stuff. And it was actually hard to extract different sugyas to divide it up, instead of just saying, today's just one big machlokes. But anyways, it's going to be, there's what to really work with as well, which is nice. There's what to hold on to and to work with. So friends, come work with me, hold on to me, and let's do it. All right, friends, we begin on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, only about 2, 4, 6, 7 lines in. 7 lines into Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, at the beginning of the line. Right? Yes. At the beginning of the line. Amalei Reb Zer le Reb Asi. Reb Zer says to Reb Asi, Bi timer to Reb Eliezer mishum hachi hu kares nami l'chayiv. Friends, what's this talking about? So let's catch up a little bit. So as I mentioned in the introduction, we saw a Mishnah yesterday about pigul, makhsheves pigul sheloi kedarka. Okay, let's take a look at our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said, "Hakometz is a mincha." You scoop up a kometz from the mincha, and Aman Yud Zayin Amud Aleph at the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. Lechol davar she'ein darko lechol. You scoop up the mincha with the intention. You scoop up the kometz with the intention of eating it. Ulakter davar she'ein darko lakter, or to burn the shirayim. You're supposed to eat the shirayim, not burn the shirayim. So the Tanakama says kosher, but Eliezer says pasul. Okay, that's the machlekes there, right? So this is be'etzem pigul, makhsheves pigul shalei kedarka, that you have a thought of pigul, right? To chutz lizmano, to eat, to do something chutz lizmano, but to do something that isn't really shayach, right? If you scoop up a kometz of the mincha with the intention of burning the kometz chutz lizmano, okay, fine, you're doing something that you're supposed to be doing, but chutz lizmano, pigul, or to eat the shirayim chutz lizmano. Pigul, of course. But if we're talking about eating the kometz or burning the shirayim, that's where things get messy. So the Chachamim say it's a completely irrelevant thought to eat the kometz, to burn the shirayim. That's ridiculous. And it's irrelevant. So therefore the mincha remains kosher. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. And that was, in terms of understanding Rabbi Eliezer, that's where the complexity comes in. The Chachamim, it's easy to understand. It's an irrelevant machshava. The korban remains kosher. Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. That's that's really where the complexity kicks in. Because why does he say that it's right? Rabbi Eliezer says pasul, right? So that's where the complexity kicks in. Because why does Rabbi Eliezer say pasul? Is pasul d'oraisa, pasul d'rabbanan? So we had seen yesterday that Rav Asi, I had said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that he was learning from a pasuk of im e'ochel ye'ochel. So we had basically learned from that pasuk essentially why Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. So now here, this is where our Gemara begins today. That Reb Zera says to Reb Asi, wait a second. So based on what you're saying, Reb Asi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Eliezer says pasul based on the pasuk of me'ochel ye'ochel. Right, that we can and we equate the two, and therefore they're kind of interchangeable, and therefore even if by achilas, right, burning on the mizbeach, you have achilas adam, i.e. burn the shirayim or eating the kometz, still they'll be interchangeable, and it'll be pasul. So Reb Zeir says to Reb Asi, if that's the case, if you're learning out from the pasuk, that means pasul midaraisa. If it's pasul midaraisa, that means that there's mamash a chiyuv karis if you then eat the kometz, if you eat the shirayim. So says the Gemara. So Reb Zera says to Rav Asi, Eliezer mishum hachihu. So if what you're saying is correct, that it's learned out from the pasuk of imeyochel yeochel, karis na min chayiv. Okay, so we're saying that it's also midaraisa, and if you eat this mincha, you'll be chayiv karis. And Rav Asi, if you're going to say, okay, fine, so you're chayiv karis, so what? Well, so what is that? But you yourself said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Moder Rabbi Eliezer she'ein anush kares. The Rabbi Eliezer admits that there's no chiyuv kares for makhsheves pigul shalei kedarka. Wow, things getting interesting here on Babble on Talmud Daf Yud Ches, although it's still Daf Yud Zayin of Masechta Menachos. So what's with Rabbi Eliezer's shita when it comes to makhsheves pigul shalei kedarka? On the one hand, Rav Asi and Rabbi Yochanan would have us think that it's also midaraisa and there's a chiyuv kares. And the other hand, Rav Asi says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that there's no chiyuv kares when it comes to makhsheves pigul shalei kedarka. So answers Rav Asi. Amalei Rav Asi responds to Reb Zera Tanoi. It's taka machlokes tanoim about what in fact Rabbi Eliezer's shita is. It's a machlokes tanoim about what in fact Rabbi Eliezer's shita is. Does Rabbi Eliezer say pasul midaraisa and there's a chiyuv kares, or does Rabbi Eliezer say pasul midarabanan and there's no chiyuv kares? As we're going to see right now, it's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar, which is a little confusing because Rabbi Elazar is explaining Rabbi Eliezer, gewaldig. So it's a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar about what Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is. Does Rabbi Eliezer say it's pasul midaraisa or pasul midarabanan? Okay. So Rav Asi says Tanoi, it's taka machlekes Tanoim Aliba to Rabbi Eliezer. It's machlekes Tanoim about what Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is. Ikal mandamar psul d'oraisa. Ikal mandamar psul d'rabanan. One opinion is pasul midaraisa, the other is pasul midarabanan. This Sanya that we learn in a Braise Ashoichet es hazevach. Somebody slaughters a korban, lishtos midamo lemacher, to drink the blood tomorrow. Now, obviously, the blood, when it comes to a korban, is achilas mizbeach, not achilas adam. You do zrikas adam adam mizbeach. But here, he slaughtered the korban with the intention of achilas adam, to slurp up the blood, to drink the blood. Ay vavoy. La'akter mibsaru lemacher. Or the meat, which is meant to be achilas adam, he has intention that he's going to burn it on the mizbeach, achilas mizbeach. Lecho me'emur v'lemachor, or the emurim, which are supposed to be achilas mizbeach, he has intention to eat them the next day, achilas adam. So he mixes together, he mixes around that which is supposed to be achilas adam, the meat. He has intention for achilas mizbeach, to burn it. That which is meant to be achilas mizbeach, like the blood, like the emurim, he has intention for achilas adam, to eat it. So he has makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka. Kosher Rabbi Eliezer posel. So the Tanakama says, right, consistent with our Mishnah. Tanakama says kosher. Makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka is kosher. Rabbi Eliezer says posel. Okay, fine. So far, consistent with our Mishnah. Now, continues the Braise. Le'aniach midamo lemacher. Okay. Continues the Braise. If he had slaughtered the korban with the intention to leave midamo, not all of the blood, but part of the blood, some of the blood. He has intention to leave, so he slaughters a korban with the intention to leave some of the blood till tomorrow. Now, of course, we know zrikas adam has to be done before sunset. Tomorrow is too late. Now, he's having intention to just leave the blood till tomorrow. He's not even thinking about doing zrikas adam tomorrow or drinking the blood tomorrow. No. He's just going to leave it. Not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to leave this until tomorrow. Memela comes shkia, the blood becomes pasul. And memela, the korban becomes pasul. Rabbi Eliezer posel. So Rabbi Eliezer says that this machshava alone, kilu, even if he ends up doing zrikas adam properly and everything like that, but kilu, the machshava, the fact that he slaughtered the korban with the intention to leave the blood till tomorrow, Rabbi Yehuda says that will be possible. Omer Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, apazoi, Rabbi Eliezer posel v'cham machshavin. Rabbi Elazar comes to argue on Rabbi Yehuda and say that here as well, we're going to have to explain this brisa, what's going on here, but here as well, there's the same machlokes as earlier. Just like by makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, there was machlokes, Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim said kosher, and Rabbi Eliezer said pasul. The same exact machlokes is here as well, that if somebody slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow, that machshava alone will make according to the Chachamim, the korban will be kosher, and according to Rabbi Eliezer, the korban will be pasul. Rabbi Yehuda liba deman. Now we're focusing on Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, right? Rabbi Yehuda had entered into the brisa when it came to slaughtering the korban with the makhsheves to leave the blood until the next day. To just leave it till the next day, that makhsheves alone will make the korban pasul according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now, the Gemara wants to know, what does Rabbi Yehuda hold in the Reisha of the Mishnah? When it comes to makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, when it comes to slaughtering a korban to drink its blood chutz lizmanu, what would Rabbi Yehuda hold there? Because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't tell us what he holds there. He only tells us what he holds when it comes to slaughtering the korban with the intention to leave the blood till the next day. That's where he tells us what he holds. What would he hold in the Reisha? What would he hold when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of drinking the blood tomorrow? Rabbi Yehuda liba deman, who does he hold like when it comes to the Reisha? Ilema liba de Rabbanon. If we say that he holds like the Rabbanon, that when a korban is slaughtered with the intention of drinking the blood tomorrow, it's completely kosher. Well, if Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the Rabbanon there, that when you slaughter a korban and you have intention to eat it chutz lizmano, but the blood rather than the meat, but you mamish have makhsheves achila. If Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the Chachamim there, that it's still completely kosher, even though he had makhsheves achila, chutz lizmano, but it was to eat the blood, the Chachamim say completely kosher. And if we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda agrees with that, well then, when it comes to not having any intention at all about the blood, just leaving it, certainly it should be kosher, right? It should be kosher. If when he had mamish intention to eat it, chutz lizmano, we said the chacham say kosher. Well, certainly they would say by leaving the blood, right? He slaughters the korban with the intention of leaving the blood, some of the blood, over till tomorrow. Certainly they would say it's kosher. And if Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the chachamim when it comes to makhsheves pigul shalei kedarka, slaughtering the korban with the intention of drinking the blood chutz lizmano, if Rabbi Yehuda would agree with the chachamim there, well, then he would have to say that when there's intention to leave over part of the blood till tomorrow, it's kosher. But he's saying it's possible. So therefore, right, ilema ali b'derabanan. If we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the Rabbanon, well, hashta u'ma hosam, when it comes to the reisha, the makhsheves b'loshen achili, mamish has intention to eat chutz lizmano. However, makhsheves Rabbanon, the rabbi says it's kosher since the intention was to drink the blood chutz lizmano. So hacha, when there's no kind of an undefined intention, lo kolshkein, certainly it should be kosher. But Rabbi Yehuda says possible, so he must be he must not hold like the chachamim in the reisha. So ela libed Rabbi Eliezer. Rather, it must be that when it comes to the reisha, Rabbi Yehuda agrees with Rabbi Eliezer that when it comes to a person who slaughters a korban with the intention of drinking the blood the next day, so it would be possible. And comes Rabbi Yehuda to say that it would also be possible if the machshava was simply just to leave it till the next day. It would also be possible, i.e., Rabbi Yehuda, who sees things the way that Rabbi Eliezer sees things when it comes to makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, says that when it comes to leaving the blood till the next day, the korban is possible. Rabbi Elazar, and now comes Rabbi Elazar. Eliezer and comes Rabbi Elazar now and says that in this case of leaving the blood till the next day, the chachamim say kosher, right? It's the same machlokas. The chachamim say kosher when you slaughter a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till the next day. Chachamim say the korban is kosher, right? Because pigul is makhsheves chutz lizmano chutz l'mkomo. Here, this is just machshava to just leave it. So chachamim say that this isn't pigul; it's kosher. And says Rabbi Elazar, according to the chachamim, it would be kosher. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it would be possible. So now, if we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda is aligned with Rabbi Eliezer, and he's saying that in this case, when you slaughter a korban with the intention to leave some of the blood till tomorrow, if Rabbi Yehuda says it's possible, i.e., he's saying that Rabbi Eliezer would say it's possible, because he sees things the way that Rabbi Eliezer sees things. So he would say Rabbi Eliezer says possible. Now comes Rabbi Elazar, and he says that Rabbi Eliezer says here as well that it's possible. So what's the difference between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yehuda now? They're basically both saying that Rabbi Eliezer would say possible. So what's the difference between them? Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yehuda. It seems like Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yehuda are saying the same thing. That when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood until tomorrow, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar are saying that Rabbi Eliezer would say possible. What's the difference between the two? Elalav kares ike benayu, and that is where this all leads to. Rather, what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar? It must be that the difference is that even though, yes, they're both saying that according to Rabbi Eliezer, when one slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, the korban is possible. The difference between them is what that says about makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka. Meaning, everyone agrees, the assumption is that when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood until tomorrow, everyone agrees there that when Rabbi Eliezer says possible, that is possible midirabanan. It's not a makhsheves chutz, like it's not a makhsheves pigul, just to leave some, not even all the blood, but some of the blood. We'll see about all of the blood soon, but some of the blood to leave till tomorrow. Everyone, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar agree that when Rabbi Eliezer says possible there, that's possible midirabanan. The question is, what do they hold? What does Rabbi Yehuda hold? What does Rabbi Elazar hold in terms of Rabbi Eliezer's opinion when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of drinking its blood the next day? Makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka. What do you mean? Well, Rabbi Elazar when it came to slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, Rabbi Elazar had said, Af bazoi machlokas. What was his lashon? From Rabbi Elazar, Af bazo, Rabbi Eliezer posel chacham machshin. Rabbi Elazar says that the same machlokes between the chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer in the Reisha, i.e. when you slaughter a korban with the intention of drinking the blood tomorrow, the same machlokas applies to when you slaughter a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow. And therefore, if the assumption is that when it comes to leaving the blood till tomorrow, everyone agrees that Rabbi Eliezer would only say pasul midirabanan, and Rabbi Elazar is saying that it's the same machlokes between the chacham and Rabbi Eliezer, both by the Reisha and by the Seifa, both by drinking the blood tomorrow and by leaving the blood till tomorrow. And by leaving the blood till tomorrow, we know it's midirabanan. It's the same machlokes as drinking the blood tomorrow, i.e., when Rabbi Eliezer says pasul by drinking the blood tomorrow, it's also midirabanan. It's the same machlokes. Now, when Rabbi Yehuda, however, says that by leaving the blood till tomorrow, Rabbi Eliezer says pasul, but he doesn't necessarily say that he would say the same thing by drinking the blood tomorrow. So that means that it's different between the two. So by leaving the blood till tomorrow, Rabbi Yehuda would say that Rabbi Eliezer says pasul midirabanan by leaving the blood till tomorrow, but by drinking the blood tomorrow, Rabbi Yehuda would say that Rabbi Eliezer says pasul midoraisa. My oh my, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda savar leaniach psula be'alma, that Rabbi Yehuda says, look, when it comes to leaving the blood till tomorrow is pasul midirabanan, but bahanoch karisam b'chayv. But when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of drinking the blood tomorrow, of burning the meat tomorrow, eating the emurim tomorrow, those Rabbi Eliezer would say pasul mida oraisa, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Also, Rabbi Elazar the Meimer comes Rabbi Elazar to say no. Af bazum machlokes idi ve'idi in both cases. Pasul ve'im bokaris. It's pasul. It's the same level of psul, i.e., only midirabanan, and there's no chiyuv karis. My oh my. Okay, that was a little bit of work over there. Okay. Whew. Okay, let me drink a little schluck of coffee. 1 second. Okay, Gavaldik. No, so where are we at? What did we just learn? Sheesh. Well, what we learned was that yesterday Rabbi Yochanan had said, Rabbi Asi and then Rabbi Yochanan had said that essentially the source for the psul of Rabbi Eliezer by makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka is mida oraisa. However, Abzera asked Rav Asi that doesn't he say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that it's only midirabanan and there's no chiyuv kares. To which Rav Asi respond, it's poshet and machlokas tanoim about how to understand Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda would say that Rabbi Eliezer says makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka is pasul midaraisa, and Rabbi Elazar would say that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that by makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka it would be pasul only midirabanan. It says the Gemara lo. Says the Gemara no duchuli alma kares leka. Says the Gemara no. Everyone agrees that when it comes to Rabbi Eliezer's shita by makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, everyone agrees that that's also that when Rabbi Eliezer says pasul midirabanan, it's pasul midirabanan. Why is it pasul midirabanan? Out of a concern of because of kedarka, right? Since if you slaughter a korban with the intention of doing zrikas adam tomorrow, it will be pigul and also midoraisa. So therefore, Rabbi Eliezer says that if the intention is to drink the blood tomorrow, so out of concern to do zrikas adam tomorrow, which would be pasul midoraisa, he says that even the intention to drink the blood tomorrow is also pasul midorabanan. Okay, everyone agrees that, says the Gemara. Everyone agrees that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion by makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka is pasul midorabanan. That's it. Now, v'hacha gimel machlokes ba'davar. Now, there are 3 opinions in this brisa, right? We had just quoted a brisa in the Reisha of the Brisa, it talked about makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, and that there's a machlekes between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Eliezer. We then discussed slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving leaving some of the blood till the next day. That's where Rabbi Yehuda had said, Pasul. Rabbi Elazar then got involved and said that in that scenario, slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, it's the same machlekes between Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer. So there's actually 3 machlekes in terms of how to understand that brisa. There's 3 opinions over here. Tanna Kama sover b'hanach pligei le'aniach devei kol kosher. According to the Tanna Kama, i.e. the Tanna Kama in the Reisha of the brisa. The Reisha of the brisa had said that when it comes to makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, whether it's to drink the blood or to burn the meat or to eat the emurin, the Tanna Kama had said the Chacham say kosher and Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. Okay, what would the Tanna Kama say when it comes to leaving the blood till tomorrow? Says the Gemara, the Tanna Kama would say if an animal is slaughtered with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, kosher. Everyone agrees kosher. Chacham say kosher. Rabbi Eliezer also says kosher there. According to the Tanna Kama, when it comes to leaving the blood till the next day, makhsheves to leave the blood till the next day, some of the blood till the next day, everybody says kosher. That's the opinion of the Tanna Kama. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says that while in the ratio when it comes to makhsheves, pigul shalei kedarka, of course, pligei, the Chacham say kosher, but Elazar says pasul. Now when it comes to le'aniach, divrei kol pasul. Now when it comes to le'aniach, leaving, right, the makhsheves to leave part of the blood till tomorrow, so he had said pasul. How come? Friends, there's a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah Masechta Zvachim. There's a Mishnah Masechta Zvachim on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. I'm going to flip back, Taka, to Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis of Masechta Zvachim, and I will read you part of a Mishnah there on Daf Lamed. If you want to flip back, it's Lamed Hey Amud Beis. I mean, I have it in the same book. So I've been holding this book that I'm holding right now. Friends, I've literally been holding this book in my hand like I am right now. Oh boy, probably about, how many hours a day? I can't even tell you. I don't know. Maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 hours a day. Every day, 7 days a week for the past how many months? 5 months? 4 or 5 months? For the past 4 or 5 months, I've spent about 5-10 hours a day holding this book just like this. Which is why if you look, it's like all worn out. Yeah, if you look at like the cover, you can see where I hold it. You see where my hand is? See also on the sides, right? Up here it's darker. Down here, where I hold the book, also on the back, where my hand goes. Right? Notice up here it's dark. You could like see where I hold the book. Anyways, so I have this all in the same book. So if you flip back to Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis, so there's a Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. It says, "Shachato amenas laniach es damo." Oh, that's exactly our scenario. If a person slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving its blood until the next day, oh, a murav lemacher, or the emurin, or lotzian l'chutz, or to take it out of the azar. Rabbi Yehuda posel. Rabbi Yehuda says posel. But Chacham machshir and Chacham say kosher. So we see that there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim when it comes to leaving all of the blood, right? If you slaughter a korban, you see, we've been talking about midamo, right? Part of the blood. Whenever I keep on trying to remember to say part of the blood, not all of the blood, because there's a difference here. The Mishnah in Masechta Zvachim on Daf Lamed Hey was talking about a person slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving all of its blood until tomorrow. And we saw it's machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham. And Rabbi Yehuda says there, "Taka be pasul midaraisa." Rabbi Yehuda says that, right, that the korban's pasul. Brings it from Psukim there and Daf Lamed Vav Mural. So Rabbi Yehuda says that slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving all of the blood till tomorrow is also midaraisa. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says that when it comes to leaving the intention to leave part of the blood, says Rabbi Yehuda that even there even though it's only part of the blood, still everyone would agree. The Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer would agree that the korban is pasul, at least midirabanan, out of concern for if you leave all of the blood, it will be pasul midaraisa. So then even if you leave part of the blood, Rabbi Yehuda would say, everyone would agree that we say, hey, the animal is pasul midirabanan. Okay, again, Rabbi Yehuda Sabar says, Rabbi Yehuda Bahanach plige, and le'aniach divrei hakol pasul. That when it comes to makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka in the ratio by drinking the blood, etc., so the Chacham say kosher, Rabbi Elazar says pasul. But when it comes to the intention to leave some of the blood till tomorrow, everyone agrees that it will be pasul. My time, how come? Kizera miktzas damo atu kol damo. As we saw in the Mishnah in Zvachim, Rabbi Elazar says that the intention to leave all of the blood is pasul midaraisa. So therefore, even when it's part of the blood, he says everyone would agree that it's pasul midarabanan. V'chodam psula deoraisa, and all of the blood, and the intention to leave all of the blood is pasul midaraisa, according to Rabbi Yehuda Desani that we learned in the Brisa. And we learned Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda said to the Chacham said it's kosher. Right? He says pasul. He says iyatem modimli. Well, don't you admit? Of course, you do admit shem hinicho l'macher shepasul, that if you did leave over the blood till the next day and didn't do zrikas adam, obviously the korban's pasul. There's no zrikas adam. That's the most important part. The korban will be pasul. So then argues Rabbi Yehuda chishev la'nicho l'macher, if he therefore slaughtered the korban with the intention to leave it tomorrow, nami pasul, it would also be pasul. Okay, so we see that that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, that the intention to leave all of the blood till the next day would be pasul midaraisa, and therefore the intention to leave some of the blood till the next day, he says that everyone would agree, Rabbi Yehuda, the Chacham, Rabbi Eliezer, everyone would agree that it's at least also midarabanan, out of concern for if you were to leave it entirely till tomorrow. Now, the also Rabbi Elazar lemeimar, and comes Rabbi Elazar to say, Av bazoi Rabbi Eliezer pasul Chacham makhshirin. And comes Rabbi Elazar to be opinion number 3 and say, no, just like there is a machloikes by makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka, so there's also a machloikes when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention to leave part of the blood until tomorrow. The Chacham say it's kosher, whereas Rabbi Eliezer says that it is pasul midirabanan. So we saw 3 machloikes when it comes to that brisa, right? Everyone, obviously, when it comes to makhsheves pigul shalei kedarka, we saw in the brisa that there's a machlekes between the Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer. Chachamim say kosher, Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. The shaila is, what about when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving part of the blood till tomorrow? The Tanna Kama says kosher, Rabbi Yehuda says pasul. Right, the Tanna Kama says everyone would say kosher, Rabbi Yehuda says everyone says pasul, and Rabbi Elazar says there's a machlekes there as well. Chachamim say kosher, Rabbi Elazar says pasul. Givaldim. Now, frag the Gemara. V'sover Rabbi Yehuda le'aniach midamu l'macher divrei hakol pasul. Now, does Rabbi Yehuda in fact hold like we just said he holds, that when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving part of the blood till tomorrow, everyone agrees, the Chacham, Rabbi Elazar, everyone agrees, pasul, out of concern for if the intention was to leave all of the blood till tomorrow? V'atani, we learned by so Omar Rabbi, says Rabbi, Kishalachti lematzois midoisai eitzel Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua ve'amrila lematzois midoisav Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. So this concept of lematzos, what was it? The matzos midosai. This concept is actually based on a Mishnah in Masechta Beya. Chevra, I'm like, as you know, I'm in love with Mishnais. Everything's Mishnais. Everything's Mishnais. The Machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, Mishnah in Zvachim. This phrase lematzos midosai is based on a Mishnah in Beya. So much stuff just comes. So much of the stuff that comes out of the Gemara is just Mishnais. I'm feeling like when the Mishnah says another Mishnah, when the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos another Mishnah it's talking about Mishnais. Everything's in the Mishnais. You know, you're learning Mishnais. So all of a sudden it's like, wow, okay, it talks about this, talks about that. Everything comes up the Mishnais. Anyways, so this is based on a Mishnah in Masechta Beya, in the 3rd parak of Masechta Beya, where it describes that Abba Shaul ben Botnis, what he was an oil monger. And for his customers, what you would do is, if you wanted to buy a liter of oil, let's say, from Abba Shaul ben Botnis, what you would do is you would go to him the night before with a liter, with a liter bottle, not like we do now. We go to the store and just buy the bottle, and now we just have endless amounts of stuff that we don't need. Back then, you would have a few, I guess, bottles, and you would go to the oil monger, and if Abba Shaul ben Botnis was your guy, was your oil monger, so you would go to him the night before and drop off your bottle. And what he would do is, see, because when it comes, as we know, to oil, right, you drain out a bottle of oil, you don't really get all of the oil out. There's still some left, right? Oil is viscous, possibly, Dennis. And it kind of drips out, right? You can just so basically, you see, if you would just show up to the oil monger in the middle of the shuk, and you would fill up, you would scoop up, let's say, scoop out like a liter of oil, and then pour it from his measuring cup into your liter, you're not really getting the full liter per se, because some of it's still going to be in the cup. It takes time to drip out. So basically, if you were a customer of Abba Shaul ben Botnis, you would drop off your liter the night before, and that way there was plenty of time for him to pour a liter of oil into your liter bottle and just let the measure drip out, so you really get the full liter. You really get what you're paying for. So that's the concept of the matzos midosa, to kind of drip out, to empty out, to get every last drop out of the measure. So basically, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says that he went to Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. That's Rabbi Elazar, who was, of course, also one of the Asar Urugei Malchus. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi went to Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, who is also the Rabbi Elazar in our machlekes, and he wanted to. So there's two versions in the Gemara. One is that he wanted to empty out Rabbi Elazar, to extract every bit of knowledge, as much knowledge as he could from Rabbi Elazar. The other way to explain is that he wanted to, Rabbi, whatever questions Rabbi had, he wanted to go to Rabbi Elazar and empty himself out of any suffix, to squeeze himself out of any last suffix, and ask Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua everything that he wanted to ask. So Rabbi says, when I went to drain out my measures, my own personal measures of suffix by Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, or to kind of drain out, see if I could drain out all of the knowledge and download all of the knowledge from Elazar ben Shemua. Matzasi Yosef Abavli Yoshev Lefonav. I found over there by the Besmedrash, or wherever Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua was, I found there Rabbi Yosef Abavli. I saw Yosef Abavli over there. There's different ways to understand this. The article Dafka explains it like Tosfos explains it. I think it's a little bit easier, so let's go with Tosfos. Stuck an interesting Tosfos a little bit. But anyways, that Yosef Abavli was very, very, very beloved upon Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. Omar lo, Rabbi, ashoichet es hazevach la'aniach midomai l'machar ma'u. And Yosef Abavli says to Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, what's the halacha if somebody slaughters a korban with the intention to leave some of the blood until tomorrow? Omar lo kosher. And Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua says kosher. The korban is kosher. Which, by the way, is interesting, because Rabbi Elazar had said earlier that it's machlekes between the Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer, but we'll get there. Arvis Omer lo kosher. And then at night, Yosef Abavli asked Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua again, what's the halacha if somebody slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow? And again, got the same response. Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua says kosher. Shachris Omer lo kosher. Same thing happened in the next morning. Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua said kosher. Tzarayim Omer lo kosher. In the afternoon also, Rabbi Elazar said kosher. Mincha, and then at mincha Omer lo kosher. Ela Rabbi Eliezer posel. Now at mincha, Yosef Abavli asked Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua again, what's the halacha if somebody slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow? And again, Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua says kosher, but this time he says, but Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that it's possible. Right? It's kosher, but Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that it's possible. Tzoavu panov shel Yosef Abavli. And Yosef Abavli's face, Pashit, lit up. Pashit lit up. Omar loy. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua says to Yosef Abavli, Yosef, It looks like we were out of sync until now. You kept on asking me the same thing over and over. When I kept on telling you kosher, you kept on essentially not accepting it and kept on asking me again until finally I gave a different answer. And all of a sudden you got super excited. Like, what happened? Sounds like you didn't necessarily agree or accept what I was saying until now. Omar Loi, Yosef Abavli responds, Rabbi, hey, he says, no, that's not it. We're totally aligned. Ella, Sheb Yehuda Apostle Shonali. However, at one point I was a Talmud of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. And I have this memory, I have this recollection that when I was learning by Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, he had taught Apostle that if somebody slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow, it's possible. But I thought I thought I was crazy because I went to all of the Talmidim of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, and I asked, am I crazy, or did Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai say that when somebody slaughters a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow, it's possible? And nobody, I couldn't find anybody to corroborate that, to give a stamp of approval, to say, yes, that's exactly what Rabbi Yehuda said. I could not find it, and I was driving myself nuts. Because I have this recollection, I have this memory of Rabbi Yehuda saying that slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, some of the blood till tomorrow, is possible, but I could not get anybody to corroborate that, to confirm that. And now, Achshav Shishanis Ali Posel, but now that you've told me that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that it's Posel, maybe when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi witnessed this, he realized, like, oh, I better write down these Mishnayos. But anyways, Hechzarta li avedasi, you returned to me my lost object. Because I was searching for that confirmation that Rabbi Yehuda says, Posel, and here you're telling me, Posel. Zolgu ein of Demos, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, tears flowed from his eyes. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua Omar, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua says, Ashreichem Talmidei Chachamim, fortunate are you, Torah scholars, Shedivrei Torah Chavivan Aleichem Biyoser, that the words of the Holy Torah are so beloved upon you. Kara Olav Amikra Azeh, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua said about Yosef Abavli, Ma'ohavti Torasecha, Ma'ohavti Torasecha, Kol Hayom Hisichasi, that how much I love your Holy Torah. I talk about it all day long. I babble about it all day long. No, we're not done yet. So now Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua continues and he says, Hamipnei she Rabbi Yehuda b'nosh Rabbi Ilai, and the reason why Rabbi Yehuda had told you, right? So Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua continues and he tells Yosef Ababli, he says, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai had told you Posel is because Rabbi Yehuda is the son of Rabbi Ilai. Rabbi Ilai Talmido shel Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Ilai is a student of Rabbi Eliezer. Lefichach shana lecha Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer. That's why Rabbi Yehuda taught you Posel. That's Rabbi Yehuda taught you Posel. Okay, now Givaldik. Getting back to our question, Rabbi Yehuda had said that when it comes to slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, everyone agrees, right, with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow, everyone agrees. Chacham, Rabbi Eliezer, everyone agrees Pasul. Out of concern for if you leave all, into intentions to leave all of the blood till tomorrow. Now, we're questioning that. If that's correct, that Rabbi Yehuda basically had taught Yosef Babble at the time, that is, right, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion was that everyone says Pasul. That Rabbi Yehuda had taught Yosef Babble that everyone agrees Pasul. Then why did Yosef Babble say to Rabbi Elazar, you have returned to me my lost object. You have validated that which I thought I was hallucinating. But at the end of the day, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua said it's a makhsheves. He says, right, he kept on saying over and over, slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow is kosher. He asked him at night, in the morning, in the afternoon, he kept on saying kosher, 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 kosher. Only in the end did he say, oh, Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua was just saying it's a makhsheves. Now, if Rabbi Yehuda had taught Yosef Babble that everyone agrees it's pasul, then Rabbi Elazar didn't really return the lost object. Right? He didn't return to Yosef Babble what he had forgotten, because Rabbi Elazar said it's a makhsheves, and we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda had said everyone agrees it's pasul. So, in order to understand that Yosef Babble had a lost object returned to him, it must be that lost object, i.e., what he had learned from Rabbi Yehuda, must have been a makhsheves, which is exactly what Rabbi Elazar confirmed for Yosef Babble. So Ella my kosher Rabbi Eliezer posel asnai. Okay, but what are you suggesting? That Rabbi Yehuda had taught Yosef Babble that it's a makhsheves, just like Rabbi Elazar says? But if that's the case, my hamipnei onanami plukta komas ninon. But Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua has said to Yosef Babble that the reason why Rabbi Yehuda had said pasul is because he was a student, he's the son of Rabbi Eli, he was a student of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says pasul, therefore Rabbi Yehuda said pasul. Now, if we're saying that ultimately Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar are saying the same thing, that it's a makhsheves, well then, why did Rabbi Elazar say, oh, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda had said pasul is because his father is Rabbi Eli, who was a student of Rabbi Eliezer? Meaning, at the end of the day, if we're saying both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar are saying the same thing, that it's a makhsheves, well then, why is Rabbi Elazar saying, oh, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda says pasul is because he's essentially, his father's student of Rabbi Eliezer? Rabbi Elazar is saying the same exact thing. So rather, it must be olam divrei akol pasul. No, so asnai. No, rather, what Rabbi Elazar is saying that the reason why Rabbi Yehuda had said that according to everybody it's pasul is because he is a student, his father was a student of Rabbi Eliezer. But if that's the case, then how do we explain Rabbi Yosef, that when Yosef Babble says, you return to me my lost object? Well, he didn't return the lost object. Rabbi Elazar said it's a makhsheves. Rabbi Yehuda said it's no makhsheves. Well, because up until then, Yosef Babble couldn't even find anybody to say that slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow, he couldn't find anybody to say that there's any psul at all. He had gone to all of the students of Rabbi Yehuda. None of them could confirm. He asked Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua over and over and over. He kept on saying, kosher, 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 kosher. Finally, Yosef Babble hears the word pasul. He says, wow, I'm not crazy. There is something here about being pasul. And then the fact that at least he heard it from somebody, from Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, that Rabbi Eliezer says pasul. Now already he can convince himself that he's not crazy, and he did probably actually, I guess he's assuming that he did his memory of hearing from Rabbi Yehuda that this is pasul, slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving some of the blood till tomorrow is pasul. Rabbi Yehuda, Yosef Babble feels confident now to say that he did in fact hear that, and that what he heard was that Rabbi Yehuda says that everyone agrees. Pasul. Wow. That was a little tricky, but that was such a beautiful, there's so much beauty in that story. I mean, I think at this point, after the past 5 months, I would find any story in the Gemara beautiful. Just a story, tell me anything. It'll be beautiful. But this is a beautiful story with Rabbi visiting Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua and what was it? Zolgu ein of the most Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua Amar Ashreichem Talmidei Chacham Shedivrei Torah Chavivin Aleichem Biyoser Mo'avti Torah Yisacha Kol Yom Yisacha. Beautiful story, a little bit technical, fitting it in, but a beautiful, beautiful maaseh. Friends, now we get up to a new Mishnah. Lo yotzak, lo bala, lo pasas, v'lo balach, v'lo heniv, v'lo higish, oshe pasasam pitim merubis, v'lo moshchon ksherer. The Mishnah lists a whole bunch of steps of the korban mincha that even if you didn't do them, the mincha is still kosher. Again, lo yotzak. So Rashi says this is talking about the last of the pourings of oil. Different types of menachos have different requirements for how many times you have to pour oil. When it comes to mincha solis, for example, you pour oil 3 times. You put a little bit of oil in the mixing bowl. You then add the flour. You then add some more oil. You mix everything together. And then you add, this is the yitzika. Then you add oil at the end. You then add oil at you add the rest of the oil at the end, and then you add the levona. The last adding of the oil is the yitzika. If you didn't do that, but I think Rashi says you just poured oil over that once, right? Right? Oh, did we? I think you. I assume that it's talking about though where you put in all the oil, because as Rashi points out, we learned earlier on Daf Tes Amid Aleph in a Mishnah that. Was it on Daf Tes Amid Aleph? No, Daf Yud Aleph Amid Aleph. In a Mishnah, it says, Chiser Shamna Psula. You do have to have the full log of oil, but if you didn't necessarily, I think the point is if you didn't necessarily pour it. Oh, the truth is the Gemara is going to explain what it. Okay, the Gemara is going to. Okay, forget it. The Gemara is going to explain what it means. We'll get there in a second. Lo balal, if you didn't mix together the mincha, this of course gets to a phrase that I like very much, that we will see in the Gemara on Daf Yud Ches. V'lo posas, this refers to minchas makhsheves, minchas machbas, minchas ma'ifesoner, right? The menachos that are baked or fried, after they're baked / fried, they're broken up into pieces before being kometzed. If you didn't break it into pieces. V'lo malach, if you didn't add salt before burning. V'lo hinif, or by a minchas omer or minchas sota, if you didn't wave the mincha lo higish, or if it was not brought to the southwestern corner of the mizbeach. Osha posason pitim merubis, or if the pieces that they broke them into were too big. That there's a Mishnah on Daf Ayin Hey Amid Beis that describes that when it comes to, right, all of these menachos that were baked / fried were baked / fried in 10 loaves, let's call them. And then after they were baked / fried, you would then divide them in half, and then divide those halves in another half, i.e. into 4 pieces. Now each mincha, let's say minchas machbas, for example, that was fried on like a kind of like a crepe look kind of pan, I think, like a very low pan. So minchas machbas, it would be fried into 10 of these like little cracker loaf thingies. And then afterwards you would divide each one into 4 pieces. So you'd basically have, I guess, 40 pieces. And then from those 40 pieces, you would scoop out a kometz. If you didn't break that, or so your pasa pitim rubis, well, the Gemara is going to explain what that means, but let's say it means that the pieces were big pieces, bigger than a kazayas, v'lo mashchan, or by a rikikin, by minchas ma'ifesoner, a mincha that's baked in an oven, not in a pan with oil or anything, but you just kind of like making pita, you put it, or making matzahs, you bake it in the oven. So when it comes to rikikin are like, I think kind of like our Ashkenazi matzahs, like the thin matzahs. So after it was baked, the oil would be like smeared, I think kind of like smeared onto it, I think with your finger. We'll get to that a little bit later. It's probably a Mishnah later on. Anyways, so v'lo mashchan kshere, if you didn't anoint it with oil by the rikikin of the ma'ifesoner, the mincha is kosher. Says the Gemara, my lo yatzak. What does it mean that if he didn't pour the oil, the mincha is kosher? Ilema lo yatzak klal. It means that he literally didn't pour the oil on the mincha. Ikuvak sibba. The Torah says that you have to do it, right? Rashi quotes some psukim, two different type versions of how we can learn it out. But Lamaisa, the Torah says you got to pour the oil. There's no such thing as a mincha that requires oil that's going to be kosher without pouring the oil. So Ela lo yatsa kohen Elazar. Okay, what it means is that no, of course there was oil. There has to be oil, but it means that a kohen didn't pour the oil. A zar did. A non-kohen poured the oil, and we're saying that it's kosher. If that's the case, lo bal al nami lo bal al kohen Elazar. Well, if that's the case, then when we move on to the next item in the Mishnah, lo bal al, that he didn't mix it, well, then let's say the same thing. Of course, you have to mix it. It has to be mixed. Just that, it means that it wasn't mixed by a kohen, it was mixed by a zar. But halo bal al klal psula, implying that just like by the oil, we said you have to put the oil in, so you have to mix it. You have to put the oil in, you have to mix it. Just that, it doesn't have to be done by a kohen, it can even be done by a zar. But that can't be. Sure, maybe it works for the pouring of the oil, but that won't hold up for the mixing. V'atnan, we learn in a Mishnah, Shishim nivlalin, Shishim ve'echad ein nivlalin. There is a machlokes in the Mishnah and Daf Kuf Gimel, machlokes between the Chachamim and Reb Shimon. You see, when it comes to a mincha, the maximum amount of flour that can be put in the mixing bowl is 60 isarons. Right? By default, if a person says, I'm going to bring a korban mincha, so that's an isaron of flour and a log of oil. There's taka machlokes in a different Mishnah between the Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov about as you add isarons, what if you say, I'm going to bring 10 isarons, do you bring 1 log of oil or 10 logs of oil? Which is relevant kind of to this other discussion. But anyways, so by default, you bring 1 isaron of flour, 1 log of oil. If you want, you could bring 100 isarons of flour, whatever you want. But the Mishnah, there's a machlekes. No, so the Mishnah says later on in Daf Kuf Gimel that if you're going to bring, so up to 60 isarons of flour can fit into 1 mixing bowl. If you bring 61 isarons of flour, then you're going to have to use another mixing bowl. You'll put 60 of them in 1 mixing bowl, and the remainder will go, so if it's 61 isarons, so the final isaron will be in a separate mixing bowl. And the question is why? The Chacham say it's based on korbanos and sukkos, whatever. Reb Shimon says the reason is because you can only mix effectively up to 60 isarons in a mixing bowl. Once there's more than 60 isarons, you can't mix it effectively. Okay, without getting into, whether it's, because it kind of relates also to that other machlokas about No, I'm not getting into that. No. Suffice it to say, it's enough for now just to say that you can only effectively mix up to 60 isarons in 1 mixing bowl. More, 61 isarons, you won't be able to mix that effectively in a mixing bowl. And therefore, after 60, if you have 61, the other one will have to be separate. Okay, but it's not shishim nivlal and shishim ve'echad ein nivlal. So we say be'etzim that up to 60 isarons can be mixed effectively in a mixing bowl. More than that cannot. Vavina, but we say, but who cares? Ki enam nivlal mayave v'atnan lo balul ksher. And we ask, but who cares at the end of the day? Why does it matter that, so what? So if there's 61 in the mixing bowl and we can't mix it effectively, who cares? After all, the Mishnah that we just learned just says, we just said lo balul ksher. Even if you don't mix it at all, it's still kosher. So who cares? Put 61 in there. Okay, so you can't mix it effectively. You don't have to mix it. Technically, you don't even have to mix it at all. Reb Zera says, well, you're right. The Mishnah does say that you don't have to mix it at all. However, nonetheless, and this is a phrase that I love, Kol haroy lebila ein bila makhsheves bo. V'chol she'ein haroy lebila bila makhsheves bo. Look, you need to be able to mix it. Kol haroy lebila, any mixing bowl that has 60 isarons or less and is able to be mixed, so long as it's able to be mixed, if you didn't mix it, it's okay. As long as it's able to be mixed. You should mix it. But if you didn't, it's kosher. But at least, you have to, at the very least, be able to mix it. If you put 61 Yisarons in, where even if you wanted to mix it, you can't mix it even if you wanted to, that's puzzle. Kol aroi lebila, anything which is fit for mixing, ain bila makhsheves bo. So even if you didn't do bila, it's okay. But kol she lo roi lebila, but any scenario where you can't mix the mincha, even if you wanted to, you can't, because there's just too much flour in there, bila makhsheves bo, then we say, okay, that's a problem. You have to be able to mix it. In that case, you have to be able to mix it. So what do we see? So what we see is basically we agree. Yeah, you technically don't have to mix. You don't have to mix the mincha, right? We were talking about later on how you have to be able to mix the mincha. Therefore, you can only have 60 isarons. And we say, why? Who cares? You don't have to mix it anyways. We say, enechinami, you don't have to mix it anyways. But kol aroi lebila, etc. So back to the question in our Mishnah. If we're saying that when it says lo yotzak, it means you have to pour it. Just it doesn't be by a kohen. But if that's the case, then we would say lo balo means you have to mix it. Just it doesn't have to be by the kohen. But we see that you don't actually have to mix it. So midi area we say, who cares? Hakadisa lo yatzak kohen Elazar, lo balo klal. No, they're different things. When it says lo yatzak, well, you have to pour the oil. It means that the kohen didn't pour it, Elazar poured it. When it comes to lo balo, there it actually means that even if you didn't mix it at all, it's still going to be kosher. Of course, assuming that there's not too much flour in the bowl. Osher pasas pitim merubis kshera. The Mishnah then had said that if the size of the pieces that the mincha was broken down into, so if you have a mincha makhsheves, minchas machvas, minchas ma'ifesaner, and the chalas, right, the like 10 breads, whatever, were broken into pieces that were too big, we say it's kosher. Oshe pasasa pitim merubis kshera. Okay, so hashta lo pasas klal kshera. 1 second, the Mishnah says you don't even have to break it down at all, right? That was one of the things we said. Lo pasas, even if you didn't break it down at all, it's kosher. Pitim merubis mibaya. I don't know, like what? You don't have to break it down at all. Now you did break it up, but the pieces are too big, and you're saying it's possible. I mean, you could have just left it the way they were, and it would have been fine. So I don't understand why you went and you did break it up. Also, I'm saying it's possible. Like why would we have the Havmina to say that it's possible? Of course, it's kosher. Even if you didn't do anything, it's kosher. My pitin mirubis sheriba bipsisin. Well, it means that you made them really small. You had too many pieces. We thought, I guess maybe those Havmina to say that would be a problem. We say no, that's also kosher. By saying alternatively, the olam pitim mirubis, no, it does mean big pieces, mamish. Umau detema, however, I may have thought, hasamu deika toras chalas alein. Look, at least if you didn't break them up at all, you just left them the way they were, at least they're chalas. Aval hacha, but when you break it up into pieces that are too big, to lo toras chalasika of lo toras psisanika, well, they're no longer chalas because you broke them, you broke them up, but they're also not psisin because they're too big. Maybe there will be a problem. Kamash b'lan, no. It's okay. If you break it up into pieces and they're too big, it's still going to be kosher. Friends, we're going to hold it here because then we get into like this machlokes that continues on to tomorrow's daf. This isn't super hard for the rest of the daf. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long to do tomorrow, but if we start here, then we're going to have to jump in the middle of a sugya tomorrow. I don't really like doing that, and I think this daf has been, it's already been over an hour anyway, so I think we got plenty to, we've done plenty today, so we're going to hold it here. Friends, this was an action-packed daf. There was a lot here. We learned about Rabbi Eliezer on makhsheves pigul shaloi kedarka. Okay, initially we wanted to say that his opinion is a machlokes, that either it's possible midar abanon and no kares. That would be the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, or midoraisa and there is kares. That would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, right? So initially, Rav Asi wanted to say that understanding Rabbi Eliezer's opinion when it comes to makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka. So initially, Rav Asi wanted to say that Rabbi Eliezer, when he says possible, it's a machlokes. If he says Rabbi Eliezer says possible midoraisa or midarabanan, he wanted to say it's a machlokes, and we brought this brisa where we had a makhlokas of Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar, and Rav Asi wanted to explain that Rabbi Yehuda says that Rabbi Eliezer would say, by makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka, it would be possible midoraisa, and that Rabbi Elazar says that it would be possible midorabanan. But then in the end we say no, it's not like that. Everyone agrees that Rabbi Eliezer would say possible midorabanan when it comes to makhsheves pigul shelo kedarka, out of concern for makhsheves pigul kedarka, which of course would be possible midoraisa. Now, as part of that brisa that we just quoted with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, so we got into a discussion about slaughtering a korban with the intention of leaving part of its blood until tomorrow. So we saw, in the end, basically it was we said it was a three-way machlokas. The Tanna Kama says everyone would say that the intention to leave the blood until tomorrow is kosher. Meaning you slaughter a korban with the intention of leaving the blood till tomorrow, the korban is kosher. Obviously, if you do leave the blood till tomorrow, everyone says it would be puzzle, obviously. But the intention to leave part of the blood till tomorrow, Tanna Kama says everyone says it would be kosher. Rabbi Yehuda says everyone says it would be puzzle, because he says that if all of the blood was left till tomorrow, if there was intention to leave all of the blood to tomorrow, it would be puzzle midoraisa. So therefore, even part of the blood, everyone would say is possible midorabanan. And Rabbi Elazar had said that we have the same machlokas as earlier. The rabbis would say kosher, Rabbi Eliezer would say possible. Then we got into a whole story with Rabbi visiting Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua and Yosef Babble. And then we got to a new Mishnah where we discussed some of the steps of a mincha. Particularly, we discussed the pouring of the oil that we said has to be done, but it can be done by a non-kohen, and the mixing of the mincha. Technically, the mincha doesn't need to be mixed at all, but it does have to be able to be mixed at the very least. But technically, you don't need to mix it at all. And then we talked about breaking down the mincha into these pieces, even if they are big pieces, bigger than a kazayas, still the mincha would be kosher. Friends, that was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Menachos. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Cheers.